Phil and I figured this, Phil's figured it out also. But I've got a holistic view of what you can do with road management. So does water road management, so does Phil. So I push real heavy on the effects on the watershed. Okay. I think that's more important. I mean, there's a lot of other things, and we'll figure out the techniques. And you know, if you're not a blind dog, you'll figure the darn thing out. You know, based on what's in Bill's book, what's in here, and attending things like this. But I want you to understand the watershed viewpoint. Okay, and I want you to understand how critical it is. And that for me, when I hit a road, I do this out of here, okay? And that's really good for Steve. When you do something from a passion, it's not work, okay? And part of that, and what feeds me, is knowing that I'm making a difference. And when we started doing these calculations of how much water we move, I'm like, oh my God. You know, this is significant. Okay. I've done a lot of channel work and stuff like this. You know, Jeremiah and I worked with these big boulders and build all the big structure. Well, that helps things. We move a lot more water. I think have more effect on
this, but I can't hear you. That fan's taking
turn it off. It does the same thing to me.
Sorry. Sorry, everybody.
No, I can hear him either.
I thought you were getting all
Age.
soft spoken because you were feeling impassionate about. You were getting kind of choked up. I thought you were getting soft spoken about something.
Well, I do get choked up. I do get choked up. This is no bullshit for Steve Carson. Because we're making a difference, and I want you to catch a little of that. I want you to, when you're out there doing this, and looking at it, and look at the big picture, you're restoring hundreds, if not thousands of acres of water by re-irrigating them. Sorry, Albert, we ain't sending more water to Texas than we need to. So, yeah. So anyways, let's see. Yeah, okay, so we kind of, let's see, where were we? 2 gallons of water. Okay, road classification. Stay with me on this, you might want to make some notes, that's why I gave everybody notes. It's good on your ranch, the mail park did it, okay, and I think their classification system might be back in that book, I think I put it in there. It's good to classify your road on your ranch, and that will dictate the priority of how you're gonna work on it, how you maintain it. Okay, the road coming in here would be a class A. Okay. It's basically an all-weather road. You still have to drain it. And it's usually gravel. So your class A roads are stuff that go to the house, the shipping corrals, things like that. You need a dependable road and pretty much all weather. So when you're shipping cows, or whatever you're doing on your ranch, or whatever you're doing with the Forest Service in Romeo Park or anything else, you can get in and out, okay, pretty much any time with multiple vehicles. Class B is a step down from that. Both these roads require decent rolling tips. Class B would be on a ranch, all your roads to the waters. Doesn't have to be surface, but it needs to be drained so that it's not a beat up piece of you know what, and you can get to it good and you're not beating your truck up, okay? Those go to all your waters and maybe other things that are priorities to on the ranch. You decide that stuff, you know, how you use the ranch. Those require a good rolling dip. Class C, can be a semi-closed road or an occasional use of what we call administrative road. Something you might use once in a while, but you don't run the feed truck over, you know, every day in the wintertime in that pasture. Okay, it could be that, okay? And those can be different types of water, rolling dips or water bars, okay? Class C, more of an administrative road, casual use, hunting, etc. Romeo Park. Class C is kind of closed, their definition of it, but with drivable water bars, that's how we classified it there. Drivable water bars used for administration and hunting, mostly just picking up an animal, okay? Class D is pretty much a dismantled, you could go for dismantled or abandoned road. You still have to drain your old abandoned roads, because they have the same effect. Okay, and we all got all these old wagon roads and crap that are all over the place, it's unbelievable, you know. So, in your road management and how to, you go, oh my God, I got 200 miles over, what the hell am I gonna do? Well, sit down and prioritize it, and those are the ones you work on first, okay? And you know, it take a few years, okay, but, you know. Wet weather management. Stay off the road when it's wet. That's your best bet. Get your ATV, if you gotta get there, or get on your horse or whatever, or walk. We forget we got these things attached to the bottom of our legs, they really work pretty well if we use them. We're all under exercise, most of us. If, when a road is collecting water like we drew on here, and it's just got water running down the road with no drains in it. The term for that is hydraulically connected. Okay? Meaning, there's no brakes in the hydraulic, it just runs down the road. Okay? So to break it, basically what we're doing is when we put drainage in it, we break up the hydraulic connectivity. Okay? And break up that force. This is not a cookie cutter deal. Okay? It's kind of the same thing in most places. However, every place is site specific. Okay? Kristen knows this, right? You guys at Philmont, you know, you know how to build a rolling dip, but every place could be adjusted a little bit because of what you're dealing with right at that site and how you want to do it. Okay, the technique is basically the same, but everything's site specific. Okay, so don't think you just run down the road and just build the same. Has to tie into the surrounding landform. It's driven by soil type, hill slope, aspect. Who doesn't know what? Raise your hand if you don't know what aspect. I'm just curious. Who doesn't know what aspect is? Aspect is our position to the sun. So if it's southern aspect, it's sloped that way. If it's a northern aspect, it's sloped to the north. Okay? Why does that make a difference?
Different vegetation.
Excuse me?
How much moisture is retained in that area? It's gonna be drier on the south aspect, wetter on the north aspect.
Right. What happens in the wintertime when you're above 4,500 feet?
Ice maybe on those north aspects.
Huh?
Frozen conditions.
Frozen, snow, da 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 da. Okay, you have to manage for all that. You have to figure it out. You know, if you're building a new road, it's real important to study aspect. You know, choice to put it on the south side of the road in a snowy country, you're probably better off. Aspect, road usage, what we drive over the road, okay? Is it a pot belly, you know, full of cows? Is it a school bus full of scalps? I mean, you know, you gotta size stuff for whatever goes over it, okay? If it's a funky old road that you only go down never, hardly, you can put a hump and a bump in it. Call it thank you, ma'am, or a water color, you know. But, okay. It's also driven by vegetation cover or lack thereof. Hill slope coming into it. If you have not too steep of your roads here, if you have not too steep of a hill slope coming into it, and it's well vegetated, you're gonna get less water on your road than if you have a steep slope that is real rocky. Okay? You got some rocky slopes out there, Kristen?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Why is it different? Why are they different? Because rock does not absorb water. So your discharge, the amount of water that hits that, more comes off of that rocky slope than a vegetated slope. So you have to tie all this in to what you're doing. You gotta pay attention. You're just not walking down the road like this. You're gonna have a holistic view of where you're working. And then that's why it's site specific. Grade of the road, everything else. Type of road treatments. Oh wait, just a second. This practice discipline is a learned by doing skill. Okay? You learn it by experience. The mother of knowledge. You get beat up enough, you might figure it out. No. So you are a geologist, a hydrologist, a surveyor, a designer, or physicist, watershed restoration, a fluvial geomorphologist, and an equipment operator. You didn't know that, did you, Kristen? We're gonna get you, how many badges is that? Like the Boy Scouts will get badges for all that. But these are the disciplines that you have to have some basic knowledge of to make this work right. And a lot of you do. I mean, you don't have to be a geologist to kind of look at things and see how it works, you know. You might know some of the formations and stuff, but you've got to pay attention to soil type and everything else. Okay, let's use that in this type of treatments. Oh, yeah. You might flip to, if you want to kind of follow along with Bill's book. I'll cover most of these, maybe not in the order, but it's page 15. He's got a bunch of treatments. It's not a road problem, it's a water management problem. Do we manage everything else? Manage the grass, manage the money, blah, 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 and we forget about it. And we manage some more, I mean, we don't. You know, this is a big one I think we're missing. The standard treatment, I'll draw it in two forms, is the rolling bit. This is the roll in, this is the roll out. Coming on the side of the road. That's a longitudinal view from the length. Plan view. Slope is this way. Slope is this way. Plan view. It kind of looks like this. Okay. the drain going out here. Or coming down the road, going out. Most everything we do is based on that basic concept. We kind of modify it. Okay, and we'll demonstrate some of this stuff. Water bar, also known as a thank you ma'am. We'll just go down the road. It's more of a hump and a bump, not easy to drive over. That's why we only use it on markedly used roads or closed roads, okay? And sometimes we have to use it on some real, we'll see some down here when we look at the road going into the canyon. It kinda had to be that way, just because it's steep and it was just, kinda, to get the reverse grade, it was easier to kind of roll this hump and a bump. You can get over it with a trailer. It's got a cliff on one side, it's got a cliff on this side, a cliff on this side, it's not very wide, so you're not gonna go down there fast anyways. Okay, so it's, siding. Okay.
Blasted rock is what
And
it
then,
is.
of course, the water stick off here. Okay. What we don't wanna do is build these when we're supposed to be building those. I'm gonna beat up on Fort Union, you can tell them if you want to.
Don't
They're
beat on
not
them
here,
too
so
hard.
you can say
Yeah.
that.
Don't beat on them too hard, cause I did some of that.
I worked with those guys, but they didn't get this concept. Jeremiah actually had to rebuild a bunch of them. What was the basic problem with them, Jeremiah?
Some of them, the drains were too hard, and a lot of them, they're really abrupt.
Yeah.
And,
Or hump and
yeah.
bump.
Yeah, and
I know.
it's a technique you can learn to make them smooth. You get your material on the road and you start pulling the blade back, and you're going up. It lets you climb the hill. And then you might be a little bit jerky in the beginning. You start pushing the blade forward when you hit the top, and then once you feel that tractor roll, you
Keep rolling out.
start pulling back. So as the tractor rolls over the top, you're pulling the blade up, and then you can make it smooth.
But the other thing is,
40 miles an hour.
to do this from the start, you have to have enough material. This is where we always screw up. Every class that I've ever taught, I said, okay, guys, I wanna see 40 yards of dirt in the road, county guys in Arizona. They bring up 20. Didn't say anything. They wallered around out there and tried to make a rolling dip with not enough material. And they either made a hump and a bump, or they had it too flat and the water was going on top of it. Okay, so don't be timid about hustling dirt, right? I mean, the more you got, the easier it is to build. I'd rather stretch it out a little bit, and have too much dirt than not enough. Okay.
Is there a depth issue in getting that dirt out?
Excuse me?
A depth? How deep you go to do that?
Weight width, and whatever you need to get up on the road. So the depth average, what I've seen is about 12 inches is all I need. Maybe a blade wide. And I used to say 50 feet out, and that's okay if you gotta get 50 feet out. But you back that tractor 50 feet off the road and start pushing dirt, it takes you a lot more time. So unless I need to, because it's a flatter slope to get the water out, I've shortened my drains up. I tend to dig them deeper and shorter, okay? Because it's easier and quicker, and it works just fine. And sometimes I might be down 2 feet. But the other thing is, we slope the sides back in, so you don't have this, the side that won't grow anything. So average is about a foot deep.
Steve, whenever you're gathering that material to put on your downhill side, if that is a slight upslope because your road is slightly in size, you savvy what I'm saying?
Oh, you bet.
Then what do you do there? Do you actually just?
Well, if I can't get an exit point, I can't get a real exit point, I'll explain that, how this works. I'll dig what I call a pit drain, I'll dig a big old hole right here. And will collect water, collect sediment, but eventually it's gonna have to be maintained. The other thing, Mike, let me see if I can draw this. Okay, here's a cross section of road, this is the road. We're looking down the road, okay? This is the landform sloping off the road. Okay? Your rollout's going this way, your road's coming in this way. Point A. If you can shoot from point A, this is the end of your drain, you dug this out, to point B, where the end of that drain is, even if you got 1% at the lip of that drain from the edge of the road, what will that drain do? It can water run out the end of it. That's why you need a. Hold on.
Hey Steve,
To tell you, you know,
we use that very effectively, and we shoot ours with a laser.
yeah,
We'll make all our lead outs exactly end at that 1%, no matter what. And usually the material that comes out of that section will always be enough to fill up on the road.
yeah, and 1% is really marginal. We really want to see 2, 3, 4% in these drains, but lots of times you can't get it. And I've got, the other trick is, sometimes, Mike, is if it's pretty marginal. I'll elevate the road a little bit, I'll pull some extra brake, or it eats the road up. So I can get that 1% out there, or 2%. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's a really good question, and it's part of the technique, and I'm glad you asked it. There's so many of these tricks that sometimes we get in a class like this, and unless somebody answers the question, it's hard to. Okay. Outslope. It comes down like this. Goes like this. Outslope goes, okay. Outslope goes to the outside of the road. Those road cross sections are on page.
Nine and 10.
Where are they?
9 and 10.
9 and 10, thank you. Those are problematic templates. Oh, road cross section, yeah, okay. Right, no, right, exactly. So outslope is this one there, slopes out. Inslope is the opposite. Slope off the hill, road slope, hill slope, inslope. Two techniques for draining the road. I use a lot of slight inslope in a road coming into my drain. My drain's over here, and as I start working stuff and cleaning up stuff, I bring that road up to the drain area and outslope a little bit. Gotta be careful with this. Why? What can that do if you in the wrong soil type and that soil type gets wet? Same way with this. This is real good if you only can crowd the road into the hillside, okay, and put it in a ditch. Okay, and lots of times you might use this where there's a real steep drop off or something. And you've got to manage your ditch. How to manage your ditch, I'm gonna jump to that really quick. Let's say, and I use these, you have to use a roadside ditch for something. Okay? You always want to tie that roadside ditch into your rolling next one. You have a crown road. That's great. We'll talk about one out here. You still need to drain it. And you tie your ditches in and get it off the road. Otherwise, what happens to that ditch? Well, it goes down the road about a half mile. How deep is it now?
2 foot deep.
Hmm?
2 foot deep usually.
or 8 or 10.
Yeah.
You know.
But a managed one, if you don't manage it right, it's 2 foot deep.
So
Every 15, 20 yards.
And if you actually are interrupting a side ditch with a rolling dip, and you're getting all that side ditch water up and out and off of the road, you better change the material up. You don't want a bunch of fines on that rolling dip structure. You might actually wanna do masonry work right
or
there,
rocks.
where
Yeah.
the ditch
Reinforce it.
meets your structure.
Good point. You can, if you're getting scour in the bottom, it's an indication you're running too much water, number one. Good point. And you can rock the bottom of those, get scour, put some rock in. The other thing is, just drain it often. Same concept. Don't allow that to happen.
Okay.
Sometimes it happens. And just because of the landform, where you have to drain it, where you have to bring the water down, I've had it happen. Didn't have a choice.
Bottom of Schnebley.
Steadily all the way down.
Yeah.
Amelia and I know about a horse in the front here, it was an absolute wreck.
And we had some really beautiful masonry work there, you know,
Old
but you
masonry
had to
work.
rock it. You had to definitely bring in rock. If you went in and put in a berm or a rolling dip with a bunch of fines, it would have all been in Oak Creek in a couple of seasons, right?
But that you do the fishes. I mean, it's all connected, we know that. You know, this road's connected to that gully drops off in the Mora, da 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 da. And we're dumping a bunch of sediment in there. Berms. Berms are basically a bad deal on roads. Because. Why?
Keeps water in the road.
Hmm?
Keeps the water in the road.
Keeps them on the road. Sometimes they're handy where you got a really steep road and you want it, it's kind of a safety deal, all right? Well, at least go down there and punch a hole in. You know, all you gotta do is tip that dozer blade or that whatever and poke a hole in it so some of that water can get out. It's not berm breaking is not a substitute for putting in the proper drainage, it just assists it. You know, a lot of times I'll put in a drain and a drain here, and when I move from here, if I'm going downhill, and I got a berm, boom, boom, between my appropriate drains. So it assists the whole system, okay? Mud holes. Have you figured out how to fix a mud hole? No, seriously.
Kind of.
Okay, kind of. You know, it's something that I had to work on. Once I figured it out, I worked on some mud holes coming in here. You saw what I did. Actually, one of my mud holes, we just filled that darn thing in. Okay.
And pack it as you do it.
What'd you say, Lord?
Pack the dirt as you put it in there. Pack it.
Pack it.
Pack it as you put it in.
I did.
That's what most people don't do.
Yeah.
They push the dirt in there and it's
I
soft.
packed it in one about
And then
1
the
foot
car
layers.
goes through and they cut the hole back.
And help on that road too, remember that.
Yep.
Good source. So what are we doing? Mud holes. Road comes down. Mud hole. Got the picture? Okay. Where does, and this could be a little, a lot of times it's a little challenge here. But in general, where does most of the water come from that goes in that mud hole? Hmm?
The road.
The road. Principle number 1. Come up here where you got a little slope, enough slope, and drain that road. What have you effectively done? Took most of the water out of that thing and get it down sort of close, but where you have enough slope to get it out. Number one, drain both sides of the mud hole. Number two, fill the mud hole in. As much as you can. If you got a creek coming across there, you might have to finesse it a little, okay? We may have to put some rock in the bottom that we got, but the biggest thing, drain it on each side of the road. The other thing, now I'm gonna go to plan view, looking down. Road. Mud hole. Drain. Okay, when you fill this in, you elevate this. This is higher than that, and you make sure that you're able to kick water off of that elevated surface right here also. Mud hole 101 works. And Lauren's right. You start filling this in, you want to put about a foot of dirt, run your machine over, put another foot of dirt, just level out, run the machine over. Does it take more time? Yes. Does it produce better results? Absolutely. Otherwise, that tends to be a low spot anyway, so it's going to have some water collecting in it. You put a bunch of loose dirt in there, your truck and your trailer is now stuck. And now, well, thank God you had your horse. You can ride home and get the tractor.
Thank God for cell phones.
You know what cowboys carry the horses in the truck, don't they? You know why? So if the truck breaks down, they don't have to walk home. They ain't gonna use that horse, they just haul it around.
That's why they got snowmobiles in Montana.
Excuse me?
That's why they have snowmobiles in Montana.
Okay. Arm brakes, mud holes. Does that help you guys with the mud hole? Cause it can be a little challenging.
Do you
And
get
sometimes, go
Do you get any advantage if you get in your fill material and make a hole downstream from that?
yeah, you make a hole, you put, a good, I generally bring it from downstream, right? I'll bring that material from downstream. Thank you. There's a pretty good example where we filled that mud hole in there. And where I got that material, I got the biggest ass chewing from the local rancher you've ever seen.
That's what I find.
Hmm?
That's where you get your big troubles, is satisfying the rancher. He won't let you do it.
Oh, boy, I had a nice pair of pants and he ripped both.
That's why there's no drainage on most of that road.
When it was all over, we were buddies. That was actually good. The way that all turned out was a hoot, boy. Yes, we bring that, you know, and if you had all the money in the world, it's a good place to haul some real good material in there if you can. The other thing is fill it in and cap it with some good material. Now, you would do that. See, we're gonna do some work on this road going out, and we're gonna have exposed crappy dirt up on their nice Felicia Road. So the trick there, the Turner guys have been working over here in the caliche pit, piling up caliche, is they're gonna have to haul a few truckloads out there and cap all that stuff. Otherwise, they're gonna have muddy spots. That's just how we have to do it. But once we get the road drained and once they get their stuff capped, they'll reduce their road maintenance by 80%. Let me tell you a story about reduction. Did I tell you the story about reduction of cost at Pima County Road Department? Rick?
A quick question about your previous comment on covering the Felicia Road with soft material and hauling more in. Will you ever salvage and stockpile the gravel that's already there, and then build your own dip and then cap it with the material you salvage?
Yes. However, there's usually not enough material to really get it done. But I do push it uphill I scrape it off, push it uphill, and push what I can get back on. It's usually a little short, but yes, that's a very good technique. You could in-haul the good material, but it's a lot of material, that, I mean, 20 to 40 yards for a rolling dip. What's easier, go push up the old material, the native material, and haul 20 yards into cover, or 15 or 10, I think economically that's easier to do. Okay, Pima County. I've worked with Pima County a couple times. We have a test road going to the Elkhorn Ranch that Bill and I laid out a number of years ago. It was totally screwed up. They had water running, one place had water running 2 miles down the road. Anyways, so we worked with them, they kinda got the idea, then they said, we need some more help. So I went over there last fall, we got the whole Pima County road crew together, went back out on the Elkhorn Road, cause we had some more work to do, da-da-da-da-da. But in getting that road workshop together, Pima County said, well, what's it worth to us? So I went to Tucson and I met with the the head of public works and the county manager, and I think one of the elected supervisors was there. And I said, what's your road budget for the year for all the roads, all your grading that you do, just from the graders maintaining? I can't remember what it was. It was in the millions of dollars, total amount. But we had some numbers already on the Elkhorn Road. They pretty much quit grading it. They spot graded once a year. They graded it 4 times a year before that. And it kept washing out. So we extrapolated some numbers out on the total mileage of road they had. And I said, what if and their average cycle time was like 3 grading cycles on all the roads. What if we took and dropped one of those cycles out? It's $5 million. Do you think we had their attention? If they invest, now they're gonna have to invest just like any of you would have to invest time and money into a road system. But you're gonna save money. You're not gonna have to work on the road, you're not gonna have to, you're not gonna heat up your trucks so much, blah, blah, and blah. And the biggest point is you can put the water back where it needs to be. Okay. Scallop. Not a substitute for a rolling dip, we use it part of the thing too, looking plan view. But basically what you do is you drop a blade right here, and you kind of go out to the side of the road and pile a little bit of dirt right here. And it's angled, it's outslope. It's just a little tiny outslope that kicks the water. Hopefully, in this, you catch both wheel tracks. It's easy to catch one wheel track, it's a little harder to catch both wheel tracks. So when you start into, you gotta have your blade that cuts into both wheel tracks. Your blade's chipped, so it's digging here, but your excess comes right up here. Okay, we'll do a couple today. You don't know, Jeremiah, the scallop?
No, I don't think so.
We had a couple versions of scallops when we were up at that Flying D in Montana. We went up to the Turner Flying D in Bozeman, Montana to teach operators, but Mayo Park sent all their guys up. And Vermeil Park's got a lot of experience, and they have some tech, and you'll do this, you kind of develop your own technique, so, how do you do a scallop? Well, they showed us how to do it. How do you do your rolling dip? Well, basically the same, and they had some different, and we do it this way because that was fine, I mean, they were doing it, but they just had some different techniques of doing things.
Why do you do a scout instead of a rolling dip?
Okay.
Is he fast and dirty or
Hmm?
fast and dirty or?
Well, it's not a substitute for rolling dip, I usually put them in between the rolling dips, just to keep the damn water off the road. And they're site specific, you gotta have the right little spot, you know, that you can kind of roll your blade off the road and back up and make sure you, now, Romeo Park does them, but they do a pretty good lead out on theirs. I just kind of make a pass, and so I'm tipping the road, I'm basically out sloping the road. Water goes off the road, and I feather the dirt down slope. It actually elevates the road, but there's not enough dirt there really. It will temporarily block the road, but it eventually, pretty quick, adios. You're relying more on your outslope than what you build up.
Yeah.
So it's a little quickie deal, it's not a substitute for good drain. You know, and it's site specific, but the nice, you know, sometimes I do it in combination when I'm gonna punch a hole in the berm. I'll just kind of swing it out, outslope my road, go out through the berm, come back up on the road. Can be done with a loader. I mean, a little different deal, I mean, you can't, you ever try to angle your bucket, you're sitting in the,
Yeah.
I wish I, but then you can pile some dirt up, you know that trick, I bet you, she knows how to get that loader tipped up like this, I do that, I've done a bunch of this work with backhoe. Now, interesting, do you go, when you're using a loader technique, a front end loader like a backhoe or a big loader? I'm interested in how you do it. I go forward into the train, downhill, opposite of pushing up towards the road with those. Do you push into the road or?
Sometimes do it both ways.
Okay.
Sometimes.
I found with a front end loader, it was easier to go in, back up, and start building my roll
Yeah,
out of the way.
yeah.
Shaping
Mostly.
things, back in, shaping things.
Yeah, and then once you've got that up, then I'll come the other way to get that soil go out.
Yeah.
Out of the.
So, but generally, if you're gonna use a front end loader, you're just going forward. That can be a skid steer, backhoe, or a bigger loader. you know. I like it because it's one move with your bucket of dirt. Go in, get a bucket of dirt, back out, start your shaping. Backtrack the shape, go in, get another. So when you're done moving dirt, you're pretty well done with the job. Other than the dozer, you push all the dirt up on the road, then you have to shape. So, just different techniques for different machines. Backhoes are handy because if it gets a little tight digging, you just spin around with your backhoe and bust all that stuff up, you know, and then go in the front end. You have excavating teeth on your,
Mm-hmm.
total different machine with excavating teeth. Did you used to not run it with excavating teeth, or did you?
No, I've always had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same thing with my backhoe, I've always had excavating teeth. And that's another thing, if you're gonna use a skid steer, a front end loader of any type, if you put excavating teeth rather than that straight bar in the front, your straight cutting edge, totally different machines for penetration and breakout. Now, uphill slope diversion ditch. Okay. Road. Wrong way. Let's do this way. Okay, how many of you got roads that the water's coming off the hill and it creates all these little rills and going, know that one?
Yeah.
And it's coming right there. Okay, how to fix that or other problems of this technique will help. Okay, you got all these little rills coming across the road. And you're not gonna really do much of it, fix it, unless you take the water out. So what I do is I get up there, a little harder with the front end loader, but you could do it. And I dig a ditch, uphill side diversion ditch. I keep the water, keep it fairly close to my road where I can get in there, kick it into the next rolling dip. Okay. You can do that also with a roadside ditch. But the trick is realize what's great. This is a symptom of drainage coming into the road. You know, we look at symptoms, we gotta solve the problem, okay? So uphill side road ditch, I use it quite often, you know. I like to keep disturbance to a minimum, but I don't mind breaking a few eggs on the deal to make the omelet, okay?
It passes over pretty fast.
You know, when you got a better grazing plans, when you got a good grazing plan, a good rotational grazing plan, you know, things heal up a lot quicker. You know, all we need is rain.
Steve,
Yo,
I got a quick, comment to make on those ditches. Most people wanna build everything V-shaped, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
well, I'll tell you a couple things about that, in my opinion. They're easier to build V-shaped. Okay? They stay cleaner because they have a higher velocity. In doing so, you better not be putting too much water in. If you gotta jam a lot of water in them, you're gonna want a wider, flatter ditch. And you may have to rock it, okay? I'm lazy. And I like to save my customers money. So I use techniques that are quick but functional. Okay, but you gotta pay attention. You start jamming too much water in either one of these, what are you gonna have? Darn cotton picking gully. Yeah, and you don't want that, so you wanna keep it broke up. You know, and let's say this had to be really long, and this problem went all the way down the hill. Well, you choose to use a roadside ditch or an uphill side road ditch, but you make sure that every drain you kick it across. The same thing we do, another technique, and we'll talk about it out here. We're kind of talking about picking stuff off the road. Okay. Here's the road you're driving on. Here's the road your father drove on. Some grandpa drove on. And some idiot came in with a wagon and drove on that one.
Got the side there, I know.
None of you have that on your ranch, right? None of you. Okay? So what's happening with all of these? And this is downhill.
Yeah, they're probably all down the fall line roads.
No,
right?
exactly. You're all collecting water. So when you put your rolling dip here, and this can be, it could be the downside of the road, same, I'll show you what to do here. Put your rolling dip here. You kick a nice berm up here. And you pull all that water out of those, take it across and re-irrigate it, this is doing the same thing. And same thing, if you got the problem down here, you just cut right through it until you're through those old roads. You know, just make sure you don't dig up your grandpa, cause you might be buried in the rut. Some of those ruts got deep enough to bury a person, you know, so sometimes
That's
they-
what this road was coming in here.
What?
That's what this road coming in here was originally.
You throw grandpa in the ditch and
Yeah, I just drove right over it.
I know you guys think a lot of your grandpa and your shit, so I'm teasing you, know. Okey dokey.
Steve, real quick, I got a question. Steve. Over here.
Yeah,
I got my little sketch here. I got this problem on one, and I don't know how to deal with it. We got a western slope here. Full of
okay, well,
boulders.
come up here with me.
It's a low bar up there.
I don't know that.
It's a low
What'd he
bar
say?
start.
I'm not getting hard of hearing.
What? Well, I made it through one war, but my ears didn't make it, and then one thing, and then shooting and everything else.
Okay.
But I had, one time, cleaned out the inside of a concrete mixer, a big, on the back of a truck, as the engine broke down, and the load set up, and we got it as the jackhammer. Inside the
Oh.
barrel, with no hearing. You wanna draw this, or you want me to draw it?
No, you draw it. Headed up to, towards the cabin,
To where?
to the cabin,
Which handle?
at Michael's. From the quarters.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, I'm gonna call it up here. Which is where the road's
So right here, the road is something down towards the culvert.
Right back the other way here.
Fly spray the other day.
About 300 feet. It's
Around
not
the
large,
street.
it's not long. Then right here around the trail, we have a bunch of boulders and rock.
Okay, bunch of rocks here.
And then
This is the hill slope going in.
here we widened it and raised it about 2 feet with base course. And then we got this one put in back in too, just like it's unique to this spot. So it's probably
Is this a grade break here?
this one, well, right here, it comes back, it goes back down in.
Okay, slope this one, slope this one.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Okay, the problem is, got our last big one, an inch and a quarter, it reached right here, but we have it widened and raised, and it washed out material. I tried to trench down in with the 6 weight.
Where'd all the water come from?
From just the rain from the slope.
Slope. You have this road drained, you have cross drains in it?
We, from here to there, it goes nice, even up the culvert, but here back, from here, it just has a, pretty much just a trench, a hook for it.
No rolling dip. Okay, the first thing, so the washout is right here.
Right here,
Okay, we'll draw that in.
we raised it.
Okay, you raised it, right, so you put it started out there.
So we can fit a truck and trailer
The
on.
first thing, let's talk about this. The first thing, you got 300 feet between this grade break and here. You probably should have drained it a couple times right there, so you can get that water off the road.
So we got a couple in there.
Okay, so you have a ditch here?
Yeah.
You catch that in the ditch, is this making sense?
Yeah.
You reduce the water significantly that's going here, and you probably had some coming off this hill, right?
Yeah, it's all in the one side.
Okay, so then you still got, okay, so what's the distance from here to here?
About 100.
Okay. Okay, you got a great break there, well, let's get a dip, let's get a long dip right there. Now what have you done? Take a bunch more water, is this one, now you got some, is this a rocky hillside?
Yeah, rocky, but it has a bunch of brush and.
Yeah, but still, could you tell that the water came off the hill onto the road?
It's hard to tell, it's just covered on.
Yeah, but right here at the edge of the road is where you look.
Yeah, well, that was my plan, dug deeper, was able to protect the next rain
You put a ditch here
as much as I could, I was only able to get about 6 inches deep.
on the edge of the road.
Yeah. Right here. Yeah, it was about that. What I was gonna ask is would it be okay to, get like an auger and punch holes in that to capture water?
You can't get up on this hillside and put a ditch. Then, I would either put a rolling dip here. Okay, we got a ditch coming down here. Or in your fill material, come down the road, you got a lot of water, dip it down like a channel, and the still scours out, put rocks in it. Okay? But the first thing I do is drain these roads. Okay?
Yeah.
First principle, this is an indication of what? This scour out. It's an indication of what?
Concentrated,
I didn't hear you.
concentrated water.
Yeah, too much water on the road, you know? Too much water on the road. So when you start getting that, you need, the easiest and quickest thing to do is get the water off the road by putting in some rolling dip. Do you know what the slope is here?
It's pretty much that old road there.
But does it have a slope? I mean, water's gonna run,
Small dome.
but water, if you dump water here, it's gonna run down here.
Yeah, it's a small.
Still, 400 feet, you're gonna collect a lot of water.
But when the guys went and dumped the material, they're the ones who did it first, and they just kind of built it, raised the whole thing. Except here, they have to raise it way more than two. So their truck would make it around. And I'm just trying to.
And the other thing, if you wanna make this a high, if this is a low spot, you do the same thing we did with the mud hole fill, we build this up. Instead of this, you do this, to make sure that you can get the water off of your home, right? Here. Okay,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. First line of defense is put these 3 rolling ditches. And again, I kinda got the picture of what you're doing here, but there's 2 things, you either make it a channel crossing and rock the bottom, or you fill, it's considered a low spot, fill it in and raise it up and make sure it drains. Everything's gotta drain, don't plug the ditch, don't plug the hole.
And if all else fails, go get a culvert.
Culvert there?
Hmm?
Could you build it up to put a culvert?
You could use a culvert.
Yep, that's,
Yes, yeah. I don't use a lot of culverts because they're expensive stuff.
but you can't drain it any other way.
Well, sometimes you do.
Yep,
Like yours doesn't.
I hate culverts.
Yeah, culverts are problematic.
Yeah.
Most culverts are undersized, most culverts don't slope, thank you. People don't know how to slope.
Yeah.
Most culverts plug up.
They plug up and
Most
they
culverts
cause
that
another
I
worse
come
on the bottom
across, I
side.
dig them out and smash them. Okay, culverts, it's a tool, just not much in this format. But, here's an interesting deal. There's a rolling dip at Vermejo Park. It's called the Vermejo Dip. Class A road. Got a lot of water coming off the hillside, okay? They still need to drain the surface of the road. But they don't wanna pull that water across there, because it's this long rocky hillside. So, we got a culvert right there. So in plan view, that's a rolling dip here. Now, the roadside ditch is like a gang river, okay? You got this, water protects off the road. Come in here, make sure you have a ditch down there, that's a culvert. And you've managed your water. Only place we used some culverts on one job, when we built a new road down into the Choma Canyon, and I mean, it was off, I mean, that side of that mountain was 40%, 45% some places. And we tried to keep the road, we had to get off the hill, and our average slope was right at 10%, that's what we were designing, that's still a fairly steep road. And, you know, we got a lot of water coming out of this hill. And instead of, you know, trying to put a rolling dip on a 10% slope, we put a few culverts in there that really help us manage the water. So it's site specific. Make sure your culvert is sized correctly. Minimum size, 18-inch or 8-inch.
Stephen, I got a culvert question. You tend to see most culverts across perpendicular to the road. Some are skewed. Should they be skewed to the direction of that flow, or does it matter?
It matters.
You might talk about grade as well. You might talk about the grade.
The grade of the
Culvert?
culvert as it goes across.
Yeah. We're almost done with this stuff. We need to, you know, I don't mind answering these questions. I mean, if you have any, if you wanna jump in on any stuff you know. So, roadside ditch, water coming this way. 2% minimum slope in a culvert. Minimum. Now, Gerald, let me ask you a question. There's a ditch dam right here. Bypass the culvert. Water comes down and turns at a 90-degree angle. What happens when it has to turn at a 90-degree angle? What?
Wants to scour.
No.
The water slows down.
What happens if water Why?
It slows down, so
When it
less
slows
velocity,
down,
drops all of its sediment.
drops all the sediment. So you're gonna get good sediment deposit. So, same location, ditch going this way. Now what do we got? Better
Don't have to
velocity.
slow down as much.
Don't slow down as much. Right. And there's some little tricks you can build some rock stuff and make it, but if you put it right angle, it's just like if you put a rolling dip right angle and try to turn that water straight off, it's gonna puddle on you, it's gonna leave a pile of mud right there. Okay. Does that make sense, Daryl?
Yeah,
Does that answer your question?
it partially does.
Like 35, 45 degree angle.
Well, it kinda depends on what you're doing. More angle, the better you are if you can stay within your slope.
My
Okay.
question was on a, like a small stream or something actually
Okay,
crossing the
that's a
road bed.
different deal. Okay, I was gonna go to that. Okay.
Cause I've
Don't
had so
screw
many
this
people
one up,
argue
boys.
so many times about what.
How are you gonna
Correctly.
determine the 2% slope?
Shoot it,
What?
shoot it.
Shoot it with a laser or a clinometer.
That's right.
Looking at it and say, oh, good enough. About 90% of the time,
No.
you're not.
You're about 2% off.
Jeremiah, what happened to the culvert the guys put in Dixon in the irrigation ditch that they backgraded the wrong way?
Oh yeah, it filled in.
Filled in,
Great.
and it runs water about 200 feet back and into the state highway. You know what? You went, oh, good enough.
And I think
I mean, bozos. I mean, good God. You know, if you're gonna do this, you gotta understand what I'm talking, preaching to the choir, I know that, but, you know, it's, the stuff that people screw up is unbelievable. Lead out ditches, county road lead out ditch, county road lead out ditch, right?
going up the hill, is that what you're saying?
8 miles, Elkhorn Road, when Bill Zedek and I first looked at it, the road had a meander pattern down it, that tells you one thing, it was sloped like this. Anyways, it had a number of lead out ditches, we shot every one of them. Can't remember the number, but I damn sure remember the percentage. 80% of them were either dead flat, which isn't gonna transport water nor sediment, or they went uphill. I mean, some of them went uphill 3 or 4%. My dog can read that, it's uphill and downhill, my goodness.
You get to see for trying anyway.
I didn't get to bring Lola because they've got some guard dogs out here that I don't want them to eat my Lola. But Lola rides in the dozer with me and she knows this stuff. So, Gerald, creek. Creek comes down like this. Okay, water's flowing that way. Plan view. Creek comes down like this. Okay? Culvert. You set the culvert at the grade of the creek. And I'll tell you what, if you take that culvert, like it's done so many times, Amir, have you ever seen this?
Yeah, shoots it out.
Now what do we got?
Shotgun culvert.
Huh?
Shotgun
Yeah, but
culvert.
what do we got here in the longitudinal profile of the creek?
Waterfall.
You got
Also known as a head cut. Now, I've seen these go quarter mile up the creek, blow the thing out, and you can measure it. If this was 2 feet, which I've seen 2 feet, you could measure the quarter mile up the creek and you'd find a 2-foot head cut. Blew all that dirt out of there. Because they put it below the grade of the creek. Never put a culvert in that's below the grade of your existing creek. I don't care how much fill material you gotta put on top of it. This was done by the Forest Service up at Tracy Acres, one culvert after another. And Bill Zedike argued with the, before he argued with the engineer, they got a big pisser match. Bill Zedike, years later, he and I went up to do an assessment of that area. Every culvert blew out every stream channel significantly. That, it can fill up the culvert, and what's it do down, what's sediment do downstream? Causes all kinds of problems. So, Gerald, does that answer your question?
Yes.
I catch you putting a culvert below grade of a creek.
I know better.
No, I won't.
Hey, Steve, can you
Yeah.
mention those Rosgan design culverts that have the culvert in the stream channel and then the floodplain culverts too, where he's got, you ever seen that, where he has the main culvert in the stream channel, but then two culverts on the top sides?
Staged up.
Yeah, up higher, and that lets the water run fast and transport sediment on the lower culvert.
Exactly. That's
And then it has a
that's
combination
the other
for
thing, other engineers-
more flow in the upper,
What
that way it
Jeremiah's
doesn't
talking
slow the
about
water down back in
is,
sediment.
longitudinal. Got the creek down here. Do a calculation, let's say for bank full. Okay. Low flow culvert, that matches our low flow dynamics. Another culvert, two culverts right there. It goes above blank full. All calculated on the cross-sectional volume of that creek. Takes a little measurement, but Jeremiah's got a point. You put this in at the right elevation, right size culvert, it stays cleaned down. Because you're catching the right amount of water going through the right size culvert. If it's too small, it plugs up. If it's too big, lots of times it will abrade in the culvert. Same thing on divert. Somebody asked me if the state highway yesterday. Box culvert. Right? Same elevation, bottom of the creek. Why does this one always kinda stay open and these other suckers are about half full of dirt? They don't have enough, they got too much cross-sectional area here. All the water goes through here. When it raises up, they don't have enough volume to transport the sediment through, and the sediment stays there. Done by an engineer.
You couldn't understand the international level of the speakers off the
I've never been to college. I'm not an engineer. But I know how to measure cross-sectional discharge of a creek. Therefore, I can correctly build a box culvert. Based on the natural dynamics of the creek. Not what I want there. Or some bullshit deal that's to the 100-year floodplain. So a box culvert correctly built would look like this. Staged, just like the culverts. And at that point, you won't have enough volume if it's the right cross-sectional area. You won't have a volume at thankful, twice thankful, and 100-year floodplain. Correct?
Yeah.
You're college-educated hydrologist.
Just
But
from
see,
my-
she can validate this BS, you know?
And I've seen that so many
Oh
times,
my
just
God.
so many culverts, just way too many and big and flat, and then they're all clogged on the side. So getting that Rosgan one down low and allowing that velocity through and then having the other ones up high, just that alone, I see that everywhere. They're still
Go.
building it.
Next time you go to Las Cruces, after you go through Socorro, start between Socorro and TRC. As you're going down there, even in the west lane, look across at every creek crossing. First, look to your west and look at the creek. Nice, broad, sandy wash. look to the other side, with the gully, I don't know how deep. They crowded all, instead of this diverse, wide sandy wash, they stuck it all in one big culvert. That's the shotgun culvert. And all this concrete is shooting out like a fire hose, blew the creek out down below. Every one of them. Every one of them. Designed by an engineer, approved by the Federal Highway Administration. Approved by the Corps of Engineers. Uphill Side road relocated. I wanna talk about that, because we don't really have a good example of it, but. This is your road. This is the bottom of the valley. Where are you gonna put the water? Can't. You're stuck. This is the most common way why, and we're gonna do one on the other side of it, yeah, on the other side of the river, we're gonna move that road over, because it's like that. And it's just a pig hole, you know, comes right down the creek, washes our road out. So what you do is you move up here, and you put your nice little road, we can drain it in there properly, and build you a nice road. Builders would just move it over. Most predominantly in bottoms and valleys. Sometimes rough locations or otherwise, but relocating a road is an option, and you've got to understand that, especially when you go, I have no place to put the water and I'm stuck because I'm in this hole. And your option most likely is, you know, the only other option is a built-up road bed. Okay.
And you still don't have anywhere to go with the water.
Yeah, well, maybe you cram it in a roadside ditch on each side. Yeah, you're still screwed, you know, you're still.
You're still in the bottom of the valley.
Crown roads and built up roads.
Steve, when you're along this line, when you're planning a new road, I just did it by eyeball, I didn't have anything to measure it. But I tried to keep the road on the same level. Bend it around, you know, your
Yeah,
road slopes and
On contour?
Kinda on
Contour
contour,
to the land,
perfect,
yeah.
perfect. Yeah. And you want, well, you'll work it out, you don't want, well, even if it's almost dead flat, you can still get it, you know, you're still gonna have to drain it, because it's got water coming off the side of the hill. But, you know, bring it around, think about what your drainage needs to be. And the nice thing about that, you can keep your slopes moderate if you can, you know, cause you're building it from new. Most of the stuff we get to work on is existing. You're stuck with what's there, and you gotta, I mean, it's like, figure this out. I built a few new roads, and it's a pleasure, because you can get them right the first time. Crown Road. We're gonna look at a crown road out here. Just kind of an example. If you go to Crown Road, Crown Road, I do this a little dramatic. Okay, but I wanna make a point. We often talk about 2 to 4% on Crown Road. It's better to have 4 to 6%.
Off of the middle.
Yeah, here.
Mhm.
How wide, Steve?
Huh?
How wide? How wide
Depends on the use of the road.
pickup truck going up and down?
Well, see, my buddy Andrew, who lives up the Chama River. Anybody been to the Christ in the Desert up Chama River? You have, okay. They fixed the main Forest Service road pretty good now, but it's that red greasy dirt. And it's, okay, so Andrew has to cross the Charmer River and then go about 6 or 7 miles up on the south side to his ranch. And Forest Service helped him surface some of the road, but then they didn't get it all, and he got this greasy stuff. The road's only 10 foot wide. I guarantee you, he's got a road that he's got an old Cat motor grader, and that's about how his road looks like. And here's the trick. A tire there, and a tire there on his pickup truck. It's like driving down a railroad track. And I'm not gonna say you have to do that, but there's some locations you can use that. The point is to crown it. That is not a crowned road. I work with these county guys, they're standing on the flag, oh, I got 4%. I got the no BS stick in the back of my truck. And I'm using it for
It's
that.
4% this way, most of them.
You know. So, you need to have a real crown if you're crowning the roads. It's a good technique. It's hard to do. We tried to do one with Carl and because Carl was there. Where's Carl?
He's out there with the 2 cat guys.
Okay.
If that roadbed was 20 feet wide,
You can still
Same
do it. Still do it.
Same thing.
It's even easier to
from the
build
top,
it if
right
it's.
here. You gotta be able to see it.
And it's easier to build with a grader.
Well, they're easy to build. So we built one with a dozer, and it's a little funky. If we had a little more time that day, we probably could have got it done. But it's a lot easier to build with a motor grader. A lot easier to build with a motor grader. Almost impossible to do with a front loader. Okay.
Yeah.
Outsloping you can do. It's important. I rarely use it. Okay. Unless I'm filling in a hole or something, I'll try to crown it so I can kick that water off that dirt. Because a lot of people say, well, how about a crown road? Even with a crown road, you have to, you know, water running down these 2 ditches, you have to cross drain it somewhere. The other thing about a crown road, as soon as we drive on it, and I mean if you've got even good hard packed surfacing, you start to put tracks in it. You got a track that deep,
You're running water.
you got 1/4 inch of water going down the road. There's a road down by Socorro. That's through the highway and goes back over to Magdalena. State gravel road. Crown. I mean, they've got pretty good crown, pretty wide road. I mean, you kind of see the crown. You get on that road in a good rainstorm. Got 2 tracks about this wide. I got out and measured them one day. They're about that deep. Solid water running. Looks like 2 little irrigation ditches going down the road. Because it's caught in the track. That's why we still need to cross the crown road. And that's why we went to Pima County. They still do crown, well, they still flat blade stuff, but even if they say they're gonna crown it, you still have to drain it. Does that make sense, all this? We still got water running down the road.
Steve.
Yeah.
I got a quick tip on that, and I got it from a colleague of mine who got it from another landowner. Drive your roads like you're drunk. Don't follow the same 2 tracks all the time to eliminate that problem. And I know landowners have been doing it for 20 years and not had to maintain their roads because they just wander back and forth
He's
zigzag.
been drunk for 20 years?
So, but it really does work. It keeps that running from happening. And you just do it randomly as you're going through.
I don't know what
It
that
does.
refers to, driving drunk and on the road.
Okay, the other thing, and here's another point, we go this, when you put any fill in the road, let's just say this is your rolling dip. If you notice, if you go out there, you'll notice there's some tracks way over here and way over here. That's me. Because what you wanna do when you start driving these roads is you wanna drive all the way across that. Why?
Keep it packed.
Huh?
Keep it packed.
Can't back it down. Biggest thing is, we drive right here all the time, you got 2 tracks packed down. I'll guarantee you, what's gonna happen is you hit that after it gets nice and wet, and this is really not totally not have any compaction, guess
You're
what
stuck.
happens?
You're stuck.
You know,
Or you
you're
slide
sunk.
all the way in the ditch.
And even after banging on them a little bit, you can still have the same problem. The trick on those rolling dips in wet weather is always go to the high side. Even if you have to hang a wheel out on the grass, stay to the high side. And also, because they're usually slope towards the drain, and that kind of keeps you from sliding into the drain. Always work the high side of your drain when they're wet. And after you put them in and you're driving the road, that's the user's responsibility to get them packed down. Same concept what Daryl's talking about. Get drunk and drive down the road.
Quote Steve Carson.
Cut that, Dang, cut that. Don't get drunk and drive down the road. Oh God, we got there. Oh my goodness, we got there. Permanency, I'm gonna run over just a little bit because we'll go. Permanent, build permanency in their stuff, build structures that will stand the test of time, okay? Good enough is not good enough. If I hear anybody say good enough, you're in trouble. Don't believe in good enough, I believe in doing it right the first time. The other thing about doing it right the first time, guess what? You probably don't have to do much maintenance on it. Jason Cathcart, who's a hell of a hand, all across a lot of things. Good, heck of a equipment operator, good welder, et cetera, et cetera. Jason, I worked with him for a couple of years. Said, if you underbuild it, you'll probably find out. If you overbuild it, you may never know. Build permanent, good enough is not, do your best the first time, and you may never have to deal with it again. I like to say in this road work that we build geologic structures.
You build what?
Build geologic structures. Meaning, they're gonna be there for a while. Okay, let's see, Bill's book, self-explanatory, I'm not gonna belabor it much, got a lot of good information on it, in it.